Hey guys, I've got this Toyota RAV4 PRIME 2024 XSE with premium package here today, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some interesting things I've noticed, some little tips and tricks that I think you might find useful if you're getting one of these or if you're considering getting one, and just a couple of nitpicks and things I thought could be done better and maybe hopefully will be improved in the future. So let's get started. So here's a cool little shortcut you might appreciate. So obviously you can still start and stop audio with this. But let's say you're driving and you're listening to audio and you want to pause it, you can just reach down to mode and hold it for about 2 seconds and it will pause the audio. And then you can hold it to restart the audio. Pretty neat. So it's a little play pause shortcut, so to speak. Oh yeah, while I'm at it, I've got something I can't really demonstrate because I'm using my phone to record video. But if you're listening to something on, say for instance, YouTube or some other unsupported audio app, or it's playing video or something like that, you unfortunately cannot control the volume of that source directly because it will tell you the audio is paused on the screen and it will simply refuse to do it. So what you have to do is switch to another audio app such as Spotify that's supported, then control the audio volume and then go back to your YouTube video. That's kind of annoying. That's definitely something that has pestered me. I think it's more of an Android Auto limitation probably than a Toyota limitation, but I'm pretty sure Toyota could just remove the restriction on their side and it would probably allow the control of the volume also. So I just wanted to mention that it is a nitpick that I think a lot of people will run into and they didn't realize it was a problem. Okay, so a quick note about these seats, about the ventilation and the heating specifically. So if you've got ventilation on, first of all, it's pretty loud on the highest setting. There's actually a Carista and also a dealer-enabled option that you can do to lower the volume of these. I guess it presumably lowers the RPM of the fans even when it's on the highest setting or something like that. I've obviously got mine on the default. You can hear it pretty clearly. But this brings up my second point about this. The ventilation, I've noticed, actually, it is in fact cooled, as far as I can tell, by the way. So from people who say it's not conditioned, I believe it actually is. It's probably linked to the actual AC system, I'm sure. But the cooling actually takes place not here at all, and not here at all. There's like no airflow here at all. If I could demonstrate, I would. You can start to feel it up here. And as you get closer to the top, you can tell it really is happening here and here. This is where the cooling takes place. So on the front of the legs, like under the thighs, and kind of at the top of the back, you'll definitely be able to tell. Everywhere else, not so much. As for the heating, it takes place kind of in the opposite regions. So the heating mostly takes place here, up the bottom of the back, and it stops about here. So up the top, you don't really get a lot of heat. At the front of the legs, you don't get a lot of heat. It's mostly in these regions here down at the bottom. So it's kind of like a two-zone situation. You've got heat and you've got cooling, and that's the way it's designed. Is it bad? No, it's fine. It works pretty well, actually. Do I wish the ventilation worked a little better? Yeah, there are times where I wish it was better, but it's certainly better than the non-ventilated seats. Oh, and by the way, on the low setting, it is very hard to hear. And it still works a little bit. So there's definitely some airflow here. So I often keep mine on the lowest or on the middle setting. Listen to this. See if you can hear it. So it's audible on the middle setting. It's barely audible on the low. And on the high, it's pretty loud. Here's something I'd like somebody to chime in on if they've got some input. You're supposed to be able to register the seat memory in the premium package so that it links to each individual remote. And following the instructions, the way it works is you press the recall button. So let's say I'm on like seat setting 2, which is my wife's. Okay, I'm going to recall 1, and this is my remote. What you're supposed to be able to do is recall it at the same time as you hold either lock or unlock, and it's supposed to chime and link to this remote. But for the life of me, I can't get it to do it. Whether I hold both buttons, whether I hold lock or unlock on the remote. I have no other remotes in this car, so that's definitely not the problem. It does specify that in the manual. I'm pretty sure this is actually just a broken feature that doesn't work, unless somebody out there has it working. And if you do, please let me know, because I would love to know how you got it working, and I will place a comment somewhere to recognize you if you do that. Speaking of the remote, another cool feature I've got as an option but do not have enabled is that you can actually have the dealer, or in Carista or whatever, you can enable a feature where you hold unlock and it will open both the moonroof and the power windows, which is pretty cool automatically if you just hold unlock. So that's cool, but I didn't do it because I thought maybe I'd accidentally hit it during a rainstorm or something, which would be really bad. That's probably why it's not enabled by default, but it is an option, just so everybody knows. Okay, so if you're the kind of person who's worried about smart key-based theft, which I'm not sure how prevalent that is, but apparently does exist to some degree, you can hold the lock button and press unlock twice, and it will disable the smart key system on the car. It actually will not unlock the car when you approach the handle. In order to cancel it, you just push any of the buttons, and then everything works normally again. So that's cool. It also apparently saves the remote battery to some degree, which is pretty cool too. So the next thing I want to talk about here really quickly is the polarization of the head-up display. If you have some polarized sunglasses and they are perfectly horizontal, in most cases you will not be able to see the display, but if you tilt them 30 degrees either direction, it becomes visible again. So is it annoying? Yeah. Is it still usable? Of course it is. You just have to be cognizant of this limitation, and you can resolve that. It is kind of irritating when you're wearing sunglasses that you can't see it all the time. It's nice to have that. But of course you've got this giant multi-information display down here, so it's really not a huge problem. Okay, so I mentioned this in my other video, but one of the first things you want to do when you get this vehicle is set the charging schedule. And there's a couple of reasons why that's the case. Number one, if you know anything about lithium-ion battery chemistry, you know that it is the state of charge that determines the longevity of the battery to a large extent. And what that means is if it's either fully charged or nearly empty for a long period of time, it greatly reduces the battery's health and overall longevity. So when you do a charging schedule, what happens is the vehicle will actually only begin charging at a particular time each night, depending on how much it's already charged when it's first plugged in and when you're supposed to be departing. So I've got mine set for 8 a.m. pretty much, actually all days I have it set for 8 a.m. But you can change it each day, which is pretty cool. And it will start charging at, say, 2 a.m. or whatever, if I'm like half charged. And by the time 7:30 rolls around, the car will be fully charged, and therefore it only remains fully charged for a short period of time, which is really cool. Now, a little note about that, I do want to rehearse something else I mentioned previously as well. This car, like all Toyotas, is extremely conservative in its design. It never actually does charge fully, never to 100%, and it never discharges fully, never beyond, say, like 29 or 30% typically. And the reason why is Toyota knows all about battery chemistry, and they want the longevity to be good. So they don't ever really charge it above 90-ish%. So you can't get it all the way full. And even if you let it all the way run down to 0 EV miles, right now I've got 14, as you can see. If that were to hit 0, it would still be at about 30% state of charge, at which point the car will switch automatically and seamlessly over into hybrid vehicle mode, HV mode, which is also selectable with this button here, of course. And you'll get, 35 to 40 miles per gallon at that point. You'll still get full power out of the throttle. Everything will be just totally normal, except the battery will not, allow you to operate only on EV. You have to actually have the engine on when you're using the car. Of course, for short spurts and things like, stop and go traffic, you'll still get hybrid vehicle situations where the engine shuts off. That's the whole purpose of it, but it maintains a rough state of charge of about the same within reason, within a few percentage points. Another thing that's really cool about this is that you can also set climate prep. So if you want, for instance, your car to be at 70 degrees when you get in each day, well, that can happen. You can do climate preparation, and it will adjust to the temperature that you have set each day. And you can, of course, repeat it through here, or you can set it individually each day separately. Really neat. Definitely something you should do day one. Okay, so I'm recording here with one hand while driving with the other, not looking at my phone. So apologies obviously for safety. So apologies if something's not in frame correctly. But I want to talk a little bit about the built-in Toyota navigation system. It is actually certainly much better than the OEM navigation systems from most other OEMs. And that's tall praise, because there are plenty of them out there, and some of them are pretty good. I want to say that Toyota navigation is probably one of the best ones I've used. Is it as good as Google Maps? Well, I've used both an awful lot. I actually have a job that requires me to know where I'm going, and almost like real estate, I visit a lot of people doing tech consulting. And I've never gotten lost with either one. I do usually use Google Maps, because I find that Some of the information is a little more up to date. It does a better job with things like road construction and things like that as well, and it handles traffic quite well. Both of them do handle traffic, and it is nice how this thing displays. I like the interface quite a lot, actually. I think it works better in some respects than Google Maps. There's definitely a higher refresh rate, so it feels a little bit more high-end, I guess you'd say. And you know, all of the POI, the points of interest, appear to be just as good. And see how it slows down, by the way. So, oh, yeah, let me talk about this too real quick. When you have the car under 5 miles per hour, you automatically get a display on the premium package of the 360-degree cam. Normally, with the regular XSE and SE, you don't get that. You do get a backup cam, and that happens when you back up. But when you're going forward, you don't get this. Now, this can be turned on and off. So if you don't like this, you can actually hit this button right here. And see that? And it will no longer automatically do it. So now, if I'm going a few miles per hour, and then I slow down to 5, it doesn't do anything. It just stays right like that, which you might prefer. And then you have to hit this button down here in order to get it to come back on. And then, of course, you can set it to be automatic again. I do have it on because there are situations where it's nice to see what's around the vehicle. But one negative of having this turn on automatically is that it does kick you out of whatever interface you have in, like, for instance, Android Auto. So if you're trying to navigate, you'll notice that was a terrible parking job. As my 360 cam indicates, let's back up and do that again. Anyway, if you're trying to navigate, or you're even doing voice control with Google Android Auto, it will stop that in its tracks. So if you're right in the middle and you say like HEY Google, for instance, and it starts to listen to you, if the under 5 mile per hour interface comes on, it will actually stop that from listening to you. If you're in the middle of a phone call, there are situations where it actually won't recognize that you've hung up the phone. That's kind of annoying too. These are all tiny little bugs, and yes, they can all be remedied by turning off the automatic 360 cam. But it would be nice if there was like a software update to address that. That would be cool if it still operated somehow in the background. As for this interface, again, I want to get back to this really quickly. Another nice little perk, and I don't think I'm going to be able to display it here because I don't have an upcoming turn anytime really soon, probably. Let's see. If I go out to the road here, on the head-up display, which you're not going to be able to see because it's broad daylight and it's flickering because of the refresh rate of my camera, you actually will get the next turn displayed on the head-up display. It does not do that with Android Auto. With Apple CarPlay, word on the street is that it will show you notification pop-ups. So that's better than nothing. But you don't even get that with Android Auto, and there are plenty of other OEM vehicles that do display that. So that's kind of a bummer. It seems kind of like Toyota's trying to, you know, convince people to purchase their navigation subscription. It is a kind of an irritation that everything is subscription based these days, although to some degree I understand it because they have to support their product and you don't want it to just become obsolete suddenly. Still, it would be nice to have the option of using either Android Auto, you know, Google Maps navigation, or the built-in nav, and have this information displayed up there. It's still displayed down here, by the way. So Android Auto displays down here, and so does the built-in nav. It just doesn't display on the HUD if you have the premium package. By the way, another little quick side note here. If you're wondering about this acoustic glass they talk about, you look at the back window here, it looks like a normal window. Nothing really crazy going on. But on the front windows, it is much thicker. Look how much thicker that is. Can you see it? So yeah, it's definitely a much thicker pane of glass. And you can tell why it's so much quieter up here. This is kind of luxury car territory stuff until pretty recently. It hasn't really popped up in lower vehicles like this one, like standard vehicles, but it is really nice. Apparently the front windshield is also that way, and that's why it really does kind of feel like a Lexus here in the front seats. All right, well, this is not the last one of these I will be doing. So if you've enjoyed this video, I hope you will subscribe and stick around for the next one. And I've got plenty of other interesting things I'm going to cover on plenty of other products as well. So please stick around, enjoy the channel, and thanks for your support.